Well, hello. I'm here to pay my respects to one of the greatest rock drummers of the last 30, 40 years, Rob Hirst. Rob Hirst was probably on an international stage very underrated, and also he was one of my biggest heroes growing up. The three things that would sum up his influence in terms of being one of the last of the great rock drummers would be raw power and energy, technique, and he also had the showmanship, and that was always part of the Midnight Oil show. You had the Power and the Passion drum solo where he used his tank and did all this stuff, That became the big showpiece. So he really was one of the most remarkable rock drummers outside of the 70s. I can't think of many rock drummers who had all those three things, but also were the driving force in the band in terms of songwriting, lyric writing. His lyrics were amazing and poetic. There was a lot of prose in those lyrics. There was this constant agitation, this activism. He was obviously very interested in history, and that came through in the songs and the lyrics. And a singer as well. He would often be doing the big hand coming down on the snare and singing away. I don't think I've overstated the importance of Rob Hirst as one of the last great rock drummers. Who else is there who's left? I can't think of anyone who hasn't retired or is not still playing at the peak of their form. So that's my justification for that assessment. So in honour of Rob Hirst, I'm going to go through my top 15 Midnight Oil albums. Let's get started. When this came out, I was really attracted to the song Underwater. The drums sounded great. There was a real groove happening with the organ, Jim Magini playing the organ there, and that song made me want to pick up the oils again, and so I bought this album, and I was a little bit shocked because I really like that one song, and the rest of the album is very, I wouldn't say tepid, it's very low energy. They're focused on atmosphere, and it's still good. I mean, the songs are good. You've got Common Ground and Time to Heal, are very, almost country-like. There's a country sort of vibe going on, particularly in One Too Many Times. It's almost like a little Slim Dusty ditty or something. And then you've got Home, which is directly confronting the country and western fraternity. It's a duet with Emmylou Harris, of all people. But there's not really much energy going on. There's one song called Bring On The Change, which is almost the oils warming up again and getting into a semi-hard rock groove. But as albums go, it's not overly satisfying, and if you listen to it, you think, yeah, that's pleasant. There's a lot of nice things going on. There's a bit of atmosphere. I mean, you got to hand it to them. They're doing something different. But it's the first of a couple of albums, I think, where Midnight Oil seem like they're a little bit embarrassed to sound like Midnight Oil. I could be wrong, but this is one of those albums. So that's number 15 on my list. That's my least favoured Midnight Oil album. At number 14, now this may be a controversial decision, Capricornia. Now this is the original Capricornia I bought from JB Hi-Fi a day before it was released, because JB Hi-Fi used to do that in those days. They'd put new releases in on the Sunday and you could go in and get them before they were released. I'd already heard a few songs because I saw the Oils at the Forum in Melbourne, and they played a few of these songs, like Too Much Sunshine, and what's the other one? I think they played Capricornia as well, and they might have played Mosquito March. The producer here is Warren Livesey, who produced Diesel and Dust, if I'm not mistaken. And so there's a real effort here to restore Midnight Oil to their classic sound after two albums in the wilderness of experimental sounds like Breathe and Redneck Wonderland. In my mind, it's not always successful because it's just way too safe, and this is probably the first Midnight Oil album, I think, and it became the last one for a long time because Peter Garrett went into federal politics in Australia. But it's probably the first one where I felt that they weren't doing anything new, and there was just nothing on here that hadn't been done before. Towards the end of the album, it's just kind of like it's good, but it's too safe. I think maybe they were conscious of the fact that they were creating something to restore them to the Midnight Oil sound, and that comes across. So that's number 14 on my list. My next album is The Real Thing. The new songs, you got The Real Thing. Now, The Real Thing, for those of you who don't know, was an iconic number one hit in Australia in 1969 by a songwriter called Russell Morris. And the song was produced by Ian Molly Meldrum, who went on to host the Australian music show Countdown, which was very influential, which the Oils never did Countdown. And maybe this is their way of showing that, look, you know, we've done a cover of The Real Thing. But yeah, the real Thing, the production of that song was very much a psychedelic trip, and it was a massive number one hit in Australia. I don't know how it did in the rest of the world, but it was an iconic song, put it that way. And so the Oils have covered it here for this 2000 release. You've also got Say Your Prayers, which Say Your Prayers was released late 99, I think I heard it on Triple J, and it was this new Midnight Oil song, and it was sort of in the style of what they'd done on Redneck Wonderland, but it was later included on the Capricornia Remastered Edition, which I think was a bit awkward. It's just the production is totally different to that album. That album is more subdued, and Say Your Prayers just sticks out like a sore thumb, I think. So it's probably best on this compilation. Then we have this one. This is number 12 on my list. This is an EP that they made in Byron Bay, which is Australia's quasi-spiritual hippie capital. One review of this album said that the music was very restrained, considering who the Oils are and what they do. But certainly No Time for Games is an Oils classic. It fits in with that whole kind of era of the Australian Prime Minister Malcolm Fraser and unemployment. And the other highlight for me on this one is Wedding Cake Island, which is an instrumental. And it's a nice instrumental. They had that surf rock quality in their music. The main guitar line is very Hank Marvin-esque. So Midnight Oil, the eponymous debut album. So this is where it all started, and straight out of the gates you've got Powderworks, and it just races out of the gates like Farlap in the Melbourne Cup. You know, it's Powderworks is a brilliant display of guitar shredding and Aussie pub rock at its hardest. Martin Rotzi and Jim Magini are like two little rock wheelers going at each other, and of course Rob's right there in the mix with the drumming and the paradiddles and explosive drum fills, and you got Peter Garrett coming in with the line about there's two sticks in the Powderworks and I think it's going to blow today. This is followed up with Head Over Heels, which is a rarity of things. It's a Midnight Oil love song. Elsewhere, I think Used and Abused is sort of an early political song, but Surfing with a Spoon it's got a good bass lick. Once again, it's sort of a surf vibe, but then it stops in the middle and you've got this cathedral organ sound like Rick Wakeman, so it's kind of a throwback to a style of prog rock with a bit of Aussie East Coast psychedelia thrown in. So that's Midnight Oil. It's a good album, but it's certainly a sign of what was to come. Then we have this, number 11 on my list. Now, when I bought this in the late 90s, I think Midnight Oil had gone through a bit of a slump, and I don't even think it was released internationally. It only made the top 10 in Australia. This is the Oils adapting to pretty much to the zeitgeist, which they didn't often do they were the ones who were leading the charge. I love this though. This is kind of like a ersatz postcard, and I like it because it includes my home city of Hobart. You can see it there, the Tasman Bridge. Nice shiny little postcard. So yeah, it sees them in a sort of angry state. I think a lot of it was due to a reaction against Pauline Hansonism and that kind of one nation ideologies. But certainly the title track is a song they obviously like, because they opened a lot of their shows with that song for years. I like Safety Chain Blues. That was one of those interesting Midnight Oil songs. I like Blot as well. But I think the problem with a lot of this stuff is the same problem with Breathe, is that they're trying not to sound like Midnight Oil. Despite being politically engaged, angry, defiant, it just, there's quite often songs here that just, Peter Garrett's voice sounds like siphoned or put through a megaphone effect. It's hard to tell, apart from the sound of the band, it's hard to tell who the band is. So they could have just been another generic, they could have just been the Cruel Sea, they could have been Regurgitator. So that's where I think the album sort of misses. But it's probably one of the angriest albums, I think. The guitars are just like buzzsaws, and the drums are just, explosive as usual, but it's all amped up to 11. So yeah, that's a number 11 on my list. Now next, speaking of angry, is this EP, Species to Ceces. This is very angry, it's tough, it's muscular, and it's the total opposite to the previous two albums they did in terms of production. It's just rough and ready. It sounds like it was just recorded in a couple of days. The highlights here for me are Progress and Hercules. Progress is a great song with great lyrics, charging Midnight Oil riff. So that's a great song. And then you've got Hercules. Now Hercules is one of those just great Midnight Oil anthems. It was about the sinking, or the bombing I should say, and sinking of the Greenpeace boat, the Rainbow Warrior. And that song is full of great stellar guitar playing and great drumming. It's a great example of Rob Hirst's drumming. And this continues on side 2. You've got Blossom and Blood, which was about the 40th anniversary of the Hiroshima bombing in Japan, and Pictures. It's a really feral but high octane EP. So that is number 10 on my Midnight Oil list. Next one is this one. This is the Makarata Project, and this one was released in 2020. It was the first Midnight Oil album in 18 years. First Nation is the first Midnight Oil song that features a rap. Although Peter Garrett does a bit of rapping, but Tasman Keith here is the rapper. The wonderful singer Jessica Malboy from Darwin provides some really good backing vocals on First Nation. On Gadigal Land you've got a very strong cast of Indigenous artists. You've got Dan Sultan, Joel Davison, Kalina Briggs and Bunna Laurie. The only problem I have with this album is, of course, and it's not a problem, but it's just, if you're going to assess it as a Midnight Oil album, it does sort of taper off a bit after the first 3 or 4 songs. It's almost like a soundtrack in the sense that you don't have the usual Midnight Oil arrangements, apart from Gadigal Land and First Nation. The arrangements are very kind of safe, but apart from that, I mean, the concept, the use of Indigenous artists is superb, and I think that for me, conceptually, and certainly for the first few songs, for me that puts it above things like Capricornia, which feel a little bit premeditated in trying to capture an oil's sound.